Yeah, morning, Martin. Over to you on tab 11. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Good morning to the Service Delivery Committee. Just take the report as read and just go through a few key points along the way.
Thank you.
So with regards to the flood hazard mapping, we're down to ready to send out the final letters to the circa 100 houses that will remain at risk of a flood in a 1 in 100 year event. We've held off sending the final letters out until January the 17th, and then so we'll send them out on that date. And also on that date will be when our flood hazard viewer will be available on our intramaps. Next, the sub-regional wastewater treatment plant business case is still being finalised. It's hoped to get the governance group together sometime in December, but that's looking challenging. And we're currently in discussions with Minoki, who are a vermicomposting company. So they take the biosolids from wastewater treatment plants and mix them with wood, sawdust, etc., and feed them to worms and make a good product at the end of it. So we've just started talking to them around some contracts to deal with our wastewater sludge, which is will be a good outcome. Claire, did you have a question there? Or
yes, I did actually. I'm really interested in that, and I wondered whether or not there's any possibility that they might do that composting on site. Like, I understand you have to transport it, but because of the volumes that we'd probably be able to provide them, I just wonder whether they might be interested in doing something,
Yeah, no, so it's transported to their premises in Tokoroa, and they're currently looking at establishing another facility somewhere between Matamata and Cambridge. And because they'll be taking Matamata's sludge as well. Yeah, but it has to be transported to where the bulk of the wood that they mix it with comes from.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And the costs are equivalent for the transport, equivalent or slightly better than transporting it to landfill. And the actual,
that's great. Yeah.
And the actual costs of dealing with it turn out slightly comparable, favourable to landfill. And obviously you get a much better environmental outcome.
Yeah, that's great. And just while I've got you, Martin, that sub-regional wastewater treatment plant business case. So do you know what the delay is? Because it just seems to be taking an incredibly long time to finalise it.
Yeah, I think it's a very complicated piece of work, and it's having its final peer review at the moment. And then just needs to go to the governance group for endorsement before it comes back to this committee for review and endorsement.
Yeah. I'm glad we can proceed with our sort of work on the Cambridge replacement. Separately. Thank goodness. Yeah.
I mean that was an early outcome, so that was good. It enabled us to progress with Cambridge. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
Graham, I just got one question.
Yeah, sorry.
Are we talking to these people about using that product again, like buying it back or using it in our gardens or stuff to reduce our carbon footprint and things?
We haven't got to that stage yet, but they do on-sell it to various people. I think they've got a very good clientele, but yeah, certainly can talk with the parks team and see if they've got any demand for it.
It's you won't be allowed to use it if you're supplying Fonterra.
No, but on our parks and gardens, we could use it as compost. Yep. And the other key point there is the new water regulator, Te Mata Arawai, commenced on the 15th of November and has taken over from the DHB. They're busy setting up their systems, and we've been working with them testing their systems. So that's early days there. And certainly be interesting to see how they go once they're fully established. I say they have recruited key people, and they've got one employee in Hamilton at the moment who comes from an investigation background, so that could show where their intentions lie. On section 3 on water demand, so currently we're following fairly typical demand patterns. The new Parallel Road treatment plant is fully supplying the Pukereemu scheme and is also supplying TMO2 via Taylor's Hill Reservoir. I'll talk about that a bit later. There's still a couple of issues around the sand and grit, but I'll talk about them when we get to the project side. And then on section 4, demand management activities, the rainwater harvesting, again, that's been severely impacted by COVID-19, as it was all about getting out into the schools and communicating that way. So we're hoping that we can start that in the new year, once we're at the traffic lights and schools are ready to welcome visitors. And section 4.3, the summer campaign. So that started. Hopefully you've seen our new signs out and about on the streets around the district. So again, they don't say water alert level 1 anymore. They say save water or save why, to start that educational process rather than a restriction one. And we've also started our social media campaign on Facebook around some smart tips around saving water. As I said, that's our key focus, is that education one. Hamilton are moving to intend to move to alert level 2 next week, I think. But again, we'll be staying with our educational campaign and not following them to alert level 2.
Well, Martin, they don't have water meters. I wondered whether the cost of putting those signs up was relevant, because, to be fair, once you've got your meter, that's your driver of your consumption. And I think we give our consumers that option. And they get their water thing and see how they're going. That's all I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, but it still is a precious resource, and part of our consents around our water takes, we need to do water demand management and conservation. So it's all part of the wider picture of conserving that water.
Yeah. It's just that, okay, we can save water, and downstream we've got Hamilton with no meters. It seems like a crazy situation. And they just seem to be adamant, especially Dave McPherson, that water meters are a crock. But Dave himself lives in the Waikato district, and he has a meter, which is a bit strange to understand. Thank you.
Yep, can't comment on that.
No.
The next section is on drinking water compliance, on section 5.4. So all of our treatment plants are currently compliant. We did have the one that still got the non-compliant for Pukereemu scheme back earlier in the year, and obviously that stays with us for the year. But currently, all other schemes and plants are compliant. And then we get to our projects. Which ones do we want to talk about? So the key alternative water supply, which is part of the DIA funding, is progressing well. We're just waiting to do the final connections up the reservoir. We're just waiting for sign off from the Heritage New Zealand. I'm waiting for iwi assistance from NETAL in gaining that. So it's causing us a bit of a hold up at the moment, but hopefully that we'll be able to progress that in the new year. And the Parallel Road treatment plant, I say, is now operational. There is still some issues with the sand and grit, so we can only run probably at half capacity. So it's designed for 12 megalitres. We can currently run at 6 megalitres a day, and then we have to stop and clean the screens out, which takes about an hour and a half. And so currently that's how we're operating, producing 6 megalitres a day, and then cleaning them in the morning, and then doing another 6 megalitres. We have got another screen on order to put another screen in, which will be able to take us up to 8 megalitres a day before we need to clean them. We've got a trial on the plant at the moment for trialing a final solution to remove the sand and grit. So that will probably take 3 or 4 months to get enough data to show if that will work or not.
Martin, did we have the same issues before this plant, or is it this plant is drawing so much more water that we're getting that sand and grit ingressing into the pipes?
No, I think it's probably already always been there.
Yeah.
The existing Pukerimu plant was a sand bed filtration plant, so it didn't, the sand and grit didn't matter because it just went into the process and didn't cause any issues. Obviously, with the new membrane plant, sand and grit is very abrasive.
Yeah.
And so we need to remove it before it gets to the membranes.
Yeah.
And the problem is the screens are 500 micron screens, but the sand and grit is just exactly the right size to get stuck in the screen. So the screen self-washes and should normally brush all that stuff off. But the sand is just the right size to go in all the little tiny holes. So that's why we have to take them out and water blast them to clean them. Yeah.
Okay. And so, Martin, on the greenfield site, which we've got there with the plant, do we have what we call a settling down period before the official handover, making sure that it's doing what it should do? How's that all going other than the screen?
Yep. So aside the screen, we're still in the commissioning phase or handover phase. So we're operating the plant and running it and ironing out all the little bugs and issues that need solving before it's fully handed over. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions at the moment? Sorry, I haven't heard. Yep. Thank you. Cool.
And on the stormwater hotspots, on page 233, I think item 7. So we're about to let the contract shortly for the rain gardens around the church intersection and Lake Street intersection. So we've started planning that and hope to start work in February. Before then, we hope to come up with some media releases and some storyboards to put up on site explaining what we're doing, how rain gardens work and how they help protect the lake. So there'll be a series of storyboards like there was for the Hamilton Cycleway. We had those 3 boards up with the Y. So we're looking at replicating that for the rain gardens. So hopefully they'll go up early in the new year once we finish the design of them.
Brilliant.
That's about all I wanted to really highlight, and then happy to answer any other questions.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions for anybody? Everyone's getting their water? All right, we have
happy to remove that.
Oh, sorry, Lou, were you want to say something?
Just moving the acceptance of the report. If that.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Are you with us again? Okay. Tab 12, submission on the Economic Regulator and Consumer Protection 3 Waters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just give a little bit of an outline, I guess, to the background of this proposed submission. So the discussion document on the Economic Regulator was released by MB a few weeks ago, and it poses generally three sort of areas for questions. Is there a case for an economic regulator, and if so, who should be regulated across the sector? What form of regulation should that entail, and what key features should the regulation have? And then moving through that who should be regulated and then who should fund the regulator. So the discussion document around the economic regulator is based on the proposed 3 water reforms. So we're preparing a submission on the basis of, I guess, it being a no regrets type submission, which I know we've referred to a few times through this process, that whilst we've got significant concerns with the reform around it, that this regulator, if those reforms do in fact occur, we see the regulator as an important part of that wider governance arrangements in terms of protecting consumers. So the discussion points sort of cover off minimum service level type requirements that the entities would be required to provide, and the consumer protection mechanisms. just to be clear, I guess, and Martin alluded to it in his report around Taumata Arawai, who's obviously now been in operation since the 15th or so of November. That as a regulator, they're very much focused on the quality of the water delivered, both from a safety of the water, meeting all of their standard compliance requirements. For them, there is no cost tension around that regulatory framework that they have. They just specify the minimum standards. So hence why in the submission it's suggested that having an economic regulator is an appropriate mechanism to have in that wider arrangement. In terms of keeping that balance, in terms of understanding what the consumer will be receiving in terms of a service, but also at what cost. And also in the submission, you'll see a customer charter is also highly supported as an appropriate mechanism, again in support. Within the discussion document, there is questions posed around the mechanisms of information disclosure versus price quality regulation. And given the fact that Council really operates within that framework at the moment, the LGA sort of in terms of pursuing efficient delivery of services, but we also have the DIA with their mandatory non-financial performance measures who require us to disclose our outcomes with respect to those. So we see both of those areas as staff being really important in terms of being a part of the regulatory framework. So it's a fairly weighted document, but as I say, it's something that we feel as staff, and you'll see in the draft submission, that only the water services entities should be regulated though, acknowledging that there are a significant number, and the number seems to keep growing in terms of private water suppliers. This arrangement where there is a single bore or something supplying a number of houses across a farm or across a small area. We feel that generally those sorts of relationships tend to operate well. They're generally small. There is a collective type understanding around how they're management. That adding a layer of bureaucracy and regulatory requirements adds no value in that space and becomes, ridiculously onerous. So therefore, it is just the water services entities that we feel that need to be included in the regulatory regime. But yeah, welcome any questions or any comments with respect to the submissions. Submission closes on the 20th, so we've still got some time if there is some feedback or commentary that elected members would like to see included.
Well, I thought it was a very good submission, and I took particular interest in the questions they were answering and the answers that you gave. I thought it fitted in quite well. Good. Any more questions from the team? Bill and Claire. Got you. Thanks, Claire.
Oh, okay, Nephew, thanks. Yeah, yes, Dawn, I agree too. It's a great submission and you've covered things really well. I guess one of my concerns is the definition of efficiency, that it should be focused more on customers or consumers rather than the entity itself, because I feel that there's a distinction between what might be efficient for a large-scale water entity compared to consumers, and I suppose that has a bearing on their level of consultation and also on the processes or the mechanisms that are put into the hardware of the system that might make it great for a large-scale water entity, but might have impacts for the end user, I guess. But I'm not really sure how to incorporate that, but on page 4 of the submission, or page 244 of the agenda, there's a question 3. What are your views on whether the entity should be regulated? And you do make the point that defining the efficiency is important. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. And then on page 16, it talks about that's page 274 of our agenda. It talks about what is price quality regulation, and there's a figure 3 there, and it covers building blocks and things like that. and it talks about depreciation there, and the weighted cost of average, the weighted average cost of capital. So I was really surprised to see that there, because that was a question that I raised with the DIA and the original WICS material, because they did talk about a commercial imperative for the WSEs. And one of those is to achieve a return on the cost of capital, from your assets. And I was told that that had been removed, that there wouldn't be a requirement to achieve a return on cost of capital, because that would be inappropriate. And in fact, councils do not do that, in their business model. And so I thought that there'd have to be sort of slicing and dicing of parts of the business where they might want to get a return on capital for maybe new infrastructure, because there would be servicing requirements there. But I don't know, like, I think they should just cover their costs really and not get a return. I mean, they're actually getting the free use of our assets. They're not having to buy them. Yeah. So I just thought that there needs to be, a bit of care around that, or certainly make it explicit that we need to make sure the regulator is across it. Yeah. Yeah. And then with depreciation, I'm also aware that WICS were recommending that depreciation should be collected at 120% of the cost of the assets. And again, that's a change to our business model. And so they do recognise depreciation as a free revenue source. Yeah, and some of the material that I read about Canada, there was some questions raised as to why so much depreciation was collected and then left in the bank accounts. Yeah, so it looks like they're expecting, well, there's the assumption that depreciation will actually be spent pretty much as soon as it's collected on stuff, but not necessarily on the assets that the depreciation was charged against, because, renewals are lumpy and stuff like that. Yeah, so I don't know whether or not we could sort of say we'd like to have more transparency about the formulas and the treatment of, like what would happen to the funding that was collected through depreciation. Yeah, because even though dividends aren't sort of on the table, but there are other sort of monopolistic inefficiencies that could arise perhaps through inflated project costs or staff costs or other ways that in the end mean that prices are higher than they need to be, or consumers are disadvantaged. Yeah. Cool.
Dawn, what do we usually depreciate on our water assets? I mean, I think your electric pumps will be different to your pipes in the ground and your concrete and everything, but that seems extraordinarily high to me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're spot on, Councillor, with respect to our current depreciation as we depreciate our known assets. So I guess it's if you have a high level of uncertainty around your known assets, and if you haven't got them within your database, then you may say, well, we'll over depreciate on the basis that we've got a lot of assets that we just don't know about yet. And across the Pan region of the water services entity, that may be the case for some, but no, it's points well made. I certainly will look to reinforce around activity management framework being I believe very important in terms of incorporated into here, and all of those aspects of the activity management sort of life cycle of asset management and the like, and that an economic regulator can help support those.
Yeah, and I'll just one minor point to add to that is that when you're looking at that figure 3 and how I suppose new assets are financed, I think that we also should understand if there is a ratio that's employed that might say it's a split between user charges, development contributions and debt, so that there isn't an assumption that it's all on debt, or like it is covered in there that only 70% of the financing of the business is from user charges, but it's never actually been explained where the other 30% comes from. Yeah. So, those are my points. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. You had a question. Being patient. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Dawn, thanks for the report. And I have a number of questions. So just if I could go through those, just a bit of an understanding in 10B. It says at the bottom of that, and sorry, if I could first point out that the reference to the Telecommunications Act of 2001, where it does have numerous judicial and merits review processes, is good, I think. But at the last sentence, it says, however, it's noted that all references to the extraction of profits needs to be removed, as only the water services entity should be subjected to the regulation. So I just wanted to understand who else might have had to report on profits if the regulation stays as it is. And then I've got questions in terms of 10D, and then obviously in terms of 27, which are both treaty ones, Dawn. So I don't know whether you want to answer that first one question first and then go to the next.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess with respect to 10B, what I was trying to allude to there is that those private water suppliers, is that they may well be operating in a profit environment, you know, and that all of the consumers who are receiving water from it may be comfortable with that process, and that as such, you know, because we've fundamentally recommended that they not be included in regulation, is just reinforcing that view as much as anything.
So thanks. I understand that now. Great. If I can go to 10D then, I was a little concerned with the first part of that statement. Our council does not have a view on how the Treaty Waitangi principles should be factored into the regulatory regime. So I did wonder where that view came from. Is that a view by staff? Is that a view by, because I don't know that view has ever been to Ngāiwi Tōpū. I've never been asked to make comment on that view. I would certainly think, and have made statements previously about, I think the treaty should work through all of the work that we're doing at council, and you know, my participation in this committee is a, you know, as a council practicing partnership and participation. So I did wonder about that. So, and it seems to be at a little bit at difference. That statement seems to be a little bit at difference to, I think it's number 27. It is number 27, where we say our council believes that all Tiriti Waitangi principles should be factored into the regulatory regime, including consumer protection rights. So I did wonder why we were taking a different position in regards to economic regulation as opposed to consumer regulations. And I do think that the decisions we've got coming out in terms of the airwaves, and you know, that's why I briefly spoke about the Telecommunications 2001 legislation. I think that Aotearoa has moved significantly since that legislation was put into place in terms of treaty principles, those key ones being partnership, protection, and participation. And I did wonder whether, you know, whether there should be some information in that regard. And as I said, I think that there's a difference between what we're saying in 10D and what we're saying in 27.
Through the chair, I possibly have not, I guess, put it as well as I could have. I guess with respect to 10D, it was more, excuse me, the how those principles. So absolutely supporting that those principles need to be in place. But in terms of exactly how they are written into the regulation was something I felt that we weren't necessarily in a position to be able to comment on and provide a view on. But absolutely in number 27 saying that they should be incorporated and included, it was merely that word of how that was kind of highlighted in 10D.
Supplementary, if I might, Graham. I just would, because I see that you know, there is a statement there about it ensuring that there is the appropriate voice in the governance. But if the regulation document itself doesn't have those principles, then I'm not sure that the voice at the table is enough. So that would be my comment on that, Dawn.
Through the chair, I'm happy to redraft that maybe and send through to yourself, Bill, with respect to more talking about reinforcing the importance of having those principles there, and removing, I guess, that concern around the how, but just reinforcing that view of requirement.
You want to probably CC it to all the councillors, please, so that we're all in this swim on this. Yeah, I think it's pretty important.
Lovely.
All right. Any further questions? We have a couple of recommendations there on, who said that?
Sorry, Graham, Liz here.
Oh, sorry, Liz.
It's all good. It's all good. No worries. Hey, thanks, Dawn, for for the information, and certainly agree with with everything that's there. I guess I actually just met with some ratepayer on water reforms again yesterday. I just want to be and you've explained it well in the introduction that we are still not supportive of the current form, but I just don't want there to be any worry from our ratepayers that we're flip-flopping or that there's a change here, and I just don't want anyone to misread what we're trying to do. So I'm wondering if we can update our website. So there's part of our council website that talks about what our particular stance is and what our position is with this information as well. It just could be read that we are now supportive of a part of the reform, whereas I think clearly we're not, and I think our community could be confused, that's all. So I just want to be really clear about what our position is, and if we can update our website with what we're doing now. Thanks.
May I come in?
Roger, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I'd just like to support what Liz says, that in fact there could be, by some, an inferred support of the overall Three Waters by this. So I'd support having something very clear at the beginning that actually establishes that there is no inferred support of Three Waters in its totality.
Thank you, Roger. Further questions before we move the recommendation? Thank you. We have
sorry, Graham.
Yeah,
in terms of the A, or particularly the B, just the matters I raised, would they be deemed to be minor amendments under B? Because otherwise I wouldn't be comfortable with the recommendations.
Well, it said approves its submission, and Dawn's going to go back, aren't you, Dawn, and redraft? So do what?
It's more B, Graham.
Yeah, I see that. Do you want a direction to go and do that, Dawn? Just some additional, and it's coming back to all the councillors.
So including,
I mean, do you want to do it online or now? Do you want to do it now and just try and get that recommendation in before we pass it?
I'm in the hands
or do we put it on hold?
Our governance team, with respect to how best we may do this.
Yeah.
I personally feel that that possibly be in terms of, I guess, from it is 42 questions and it will be one that we will be altering. It could be seen as a minor amendment, and certainly we've made that commitment that we will do that, and then share the confirmed submission subsequently.
I just wonder whether is there the possibility for me to make an amendment that says that something about minor amendments as discussed at the Service Delivery Committee meeting on the 7th to the 12th.
Well, it needs to be subject to agreement on the minor amendments by all of us as a committee. It may be something that, and there's probably time, if we put subject to amendments and then we not regurgitate it, but we have it in our last council meeting on the 14th, which will get everybody a week at least to go through the damn thing and see those changes and comments come back. Is that something we would entertain?
Just through the chair, Graham, the agenda is actually due out in 2 days. I don't know if that's going to give Dawn enough time to turn around a report to have that back to council. I think Joe is actually coming online to maybe look at the amendment around minor, but you could make specific reference to 10D, maybe in that recommendation, Dawn?
So maybe to make minor amendments, including redrafting the
Yes, response
to 10D.
So just picking up on what Graham said, I think Graham was indicating that he wanted it to come back, so it wouldn't just be the Chief Executive approving that amendment to 10D. Is that not correct, Graham?
Yeah, I did want it to come back to councillors because I feel it's so important. If it's going from this committee, then it involves all the councillors, and we need to see the nuts and bolts. And I'm reluctant to take a single person's tweak on things without seeking some other advice.
So if it did come back to council next week, Bill would not be actually present at that meeting.
No, but I'm sure that
I can brief.
He could get it here. Yeah.
Joe's just joining us online now, Dawn. So just to try and get a bit more.
Dawn, who would work with you, Dawn, and do this? And is there a time constraint in terms of getting it to the council agenda?
I'm in Joe's hands.
Okay.
It would be a bit of a challenge in terms of circulating it and giving everyone some time, I guess, to further consider the matter, get that feedback, and then incorporate that into the report. So we would be under some significant time pressure.
Well, if we get the amended, I mean, you can put a time constraint. Say we need this back within an hour or something. It doesn't need to go on and on. It's only minor amendments, but they're very, very important ones in my view. Yeah.
Okay.
But you, Joe, are you there? What?
I am. Apologies, but I have not been listening. So you've lost me a bit as to where you're at. I know you're on the economic regulation and consumer protection for Three Waters. Yep. Was there some issue with the recommendation?
Yeah, recommendation B, and Bill's raised a couple of issues regarding the treaty and the partnership. And Dawn said that she would like to go back and do a few adjustments on that. And I'm keen for everybody to see the adjustments before we approve it, but wondering whether when that happens quite quickly, it would make the council meeting next week. Now, Dawn's indicating some constraints in time, but yeah, go on.
You have got a very busy day next Tuesday in terms of timing.
Yep.
Currently scheduled till probably I'm thinking about 2:45. But obviously, if this is something that you have considered before and you will have seen the amendments, then it could be a relatively quick item on the council agenda, so it wouldn't necessarily add too much time.
No.
But in terms of turnaround for any feedback, it would need to be very quick because the agenda needs to go out.
Yes, yeah, we understand
and
that.
Approved tomorrow. So it literally might be that kind of hour or two time frame.
But we all sat in the SD committee today and we've heard what has been said and we've read the business report and we've read the whole thing. So to my way of thinking, it's not a 2-week thing. It should be able to be handled quite reasonably. Bill, is it? Would you be able to meet a time constraint of an hour if it came through, or?
I could. Yeah, I'll place a priority on it after all I've raised.
Yeah, no, thanks. No, it would be really well. It'd be hell of a helpful.
And can you tell me can you tell me which committee it is next week so that I can brief
the council? Our last council meeting for the year.
Oh, the whole council.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no Kanohi there, so I couldn't brief.
Oh.
No, I should mention that Bill would not be present at that meeting.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I thought you meant that was some other committee that we would have.
No.
Yeah.
Because we're having our last meeting, I thought, has Bronwyn got an apology in?
No, council, there's no Kanohi. That's council, Graham. So no, he would not. There will be no one be present for that.
But I'm sure Bill could contribute, and then we've all heard it. So okay. All right, what are we doing? Are you going to put something in there, Dawn, in terms of redrafting or looking at particular sections before we pass it?
Okay. Sorry, Bill.
I'm okay on it going to council. I'll advise if it's certainly if the redraft is it continues to be a concern. I'll certainly advise people of that. So
well, when you have a look at it and put your for an old saying, tuppence worth in, I'm sure that we can pick up on that as a council and do it justice. Yeah. Thank you, Dawn. Sorry.
Totally realise that the submission needs to get in by the due date. And absolutely.
Otherwise it's something we need to wait for about 3 months, Bill. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, Dawn.
Well, no, absolutely. We'll endeavour to get that out this afternoon and the report prepared and ready to go first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, so can we have just somebody on the governance team just go through and slot in something there on the move now? Where would that fit in, Joe? Are you there, Joe? Karen,
so
somebody there?
Through the chair, if maybe that B is redrafted, that the Service Delivery Committee requests amendments to the draft submission and that these be brought to the council meeting on 14 December for final adoption.
See, this is giving the chief executive the authority to make minor amendments, but it's not the chief executive that is requesting this. It's Bill and it's our committee going forward. So maybe we need to take the service delivery delegates or delegates to the chief executive after minor amendments have been made or something like that. So it does give, although it's going to be picked up at the council meeting, isn't it? But it doesn't sound right. Yes. If the chief executive's got the authority to make minor amendments when we're trying to make minor amendments.
I think that, Dawn, what was that wording? Because I think Dawn had some other wording to replace B, didn't you, Dawn? That wouldn't so you wouldn't have that existing B in there, didn't you, Dawn? What was that again?
The service delivery requests that amendments be made to the proposed submission and these be brought to council on 14 December for final adoption.
Yeah, I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, so it'll be the Service Delivery Committee requested it. Amendments discussed at the meeting. Be made to their submission and reported to council for adoption. So then you don't have to worry about any of that wording that's in the existing B in relation to delegates to the CE.
What are we going to do then? Just have A?
And revised B.
Oh, revised B. You're going to have revised B. Okay. Okay, is everybody happy with those minor amendments? I think it gets us out of a sticky situation. And, the pressure's really on with that last meeting. We're out of the office, so to speak, for a couple of months. So, Dawn, thank you for that. And Bill, thank you as well. Okay, so with those little amendments, I'll put it. All those, move and second it, please.
Yeah, I'll move. Second.
Thank you. Is it Bruce and
I don't mind.
Roger?
I'll move.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, it's carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. Tab B is the upgrade to the raw water pump at Pukerumu. And Robbie Whiteman, are you with us?
Certainly am.
Oh, welcome. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My report today is seeking an increase to the approved contract sum for the raw water pump station upgrade at Pukerumu Lane. Confirming council staff have assessed the cost increases summarised by the report as being fair and reasonable. I will take the report as read. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions on? Yes.
I've got a question, Robbie.
Thanks, Marcus.
What's the design omission? Is that something that hasn't been, someone forgot to put something in the original plans? And how does that happen?
Through the chair, this contract's tied up with a couple of the other contracts. You might be aware the raw water intake line, the fibre networks put in. So yes, there were some omissions. That's why there was a contingency sum with the project to start with the contract. Sorry.
And so, Robbie, we're getting a couple of screens made, the extra screens for the sand. And is this part of that which was unforeseen? Is it
No,
true?
that's through the chair. Sorry, Graham. That's the water treatment plant project. This is actually the parallel
pump station.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Well, I guess we've got to approve it, guys. Otherwise, we're not cooking on gas, are we? Okay, any questions to that? There's a recommendation there, A and B, and I need a mover and seconder for this to proceed. Claire, thank you so much. And Lou, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Robbie, thank you. Is that all good?
Yes, thank you.
Cheers. Tab 14 is the Te Awamutu Presbyterian Church surplus land for potential sale. And we have, who have we got doing this? Eric. Morning, Eric.
Good morning, Graham and members of the committee.
Okay. Do you have to be a Presbyterian to sit on this? Only joking. Okay, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Yes, I'll take the report as read, but in a nutshell, the church has offered us land that is now surplus due to the government, I guess, change in car parking requirements for commercial development. So they don't need that additional car parking to comply with their, I guess, with any district plan requirements. My report recommends that we decline the offer on the basis that it's not consistent with our, I guess, our strategy, and that part of town actually has quite a lot of roadside parking available. Yeah, and it becomes an expensive exercise if we pursue down that path. I'm happy to take any questions.
Can I just ask how the Te Awamutu councillors feeling about this? Obviously, it's right in your patch. Lou, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, quickly through you, Mr. Chair. I just noted that there was an actual existence of a dump or archaeological problem. Could Eric just develop that a bit?
Yeah, so there's a, I forget the name of the entity, but there's an archaeological site listed in that vicinity, and it could be an old dump site. The details will won't be fully understood, but what it means, it triggers a requirement to go through a process of archaeological reporting and consulting if we chose to proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. What that means then, it would add to the cost of the actual purchase it for us to develop it into a car park.
That's correct.
Andrew.
Yeah, look, I'm in agreement with the recommendation. I don't think buying it for a car park makes a lot of sense. There is quite a bit of parking up there. We already bought part of the Te Awamutu Club for a car park, and this one would obviously be quite expensive to develop.
Okay.
I don't know whether that. I didn't pick up whether the church had more or less put a covenant that it could only be a car park. But yeah.
Well, thank you. That's good to know from the local people. So are there any more questions or things that need answering there? There does always seem to be quite a bit of car parking available there, so it might be an expensive option, really. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it goes on the open market, what they do with it. Or okay, there's a recommendation there, A and B, that we accept the report from Eric, and then we turned it down. I'm looking for a move and a seconder, please, to progress this. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Lou. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Okay. Tab 15 is the LINZ Wastewater Agreement, Tokanui Village. And Richard Bax, are you online, Rich?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Well done, sir. The floor is yours. This is a common thing, isn't it, I hope?
So a very brief report to you on the wastewater agreement that we've entered into with LINZ for the Tokanui Village wastewater, based on the targeted rate for wastewater. So the contract is for 1 year for council to provide those services. And then there's a couple of renewals potentially if LINZ requests that and council agrees. So this was as a result of the report I did to you back in August last year, setting out some of the options and to get council support for continuing the discussions. So we're talking about wastewater here. We've still got water, stormwater, eroding, etc., and parks to potentially discuss, but at this stage, just wastewater. So happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Yeah, Richard, the village has been hanging out for a wastewater disposal system for a while, and I guess the Waikeria situation gives them that opportunity to get onto that. Am I correct?
Exactly, yes. It was part of the arrangements we had with Department of Corrections was to connect or have the ability to connect up this area.
Yeah, brilliant. Any questions on the proposal? Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I just wanted to acknowledge that Mana Whenua are very pleased with this proposal, and it gives them the opportunity to redevelop the stream in terms of bringing it back with riparian planting and cleaning it up in terms of its flow into the Waipa. So yeah, just acknowledging that and supporting the proposal.
Thank you. Do you mean the flowing into the Waipa or the Punia?
Oh, Punia, sorry, yes, you're right, Graham.
I grew up at Pokeroo, so I kind of know the packs, Bill.
It gets to the Waipa.
It gets to the Waipa, doesn't it? Yeah, thank you.
I should, if we're going right along there to on the Tangniwha, then we should be saying the Waikato then. Kia ora, Graham.
Oh, gee, I remember as a kid getting 16-pound eels out of there, and we had to take them home with Dad's little Massey Ferguson. That was everything. They're great fun. Okay, there's a recommendation there, a very simple recommendation A there. So move in a second, please, to get that going.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Move.
Second, please.
Aye. Mike.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's carried. Thank you so much. Kieran, we're going offline now to public excluded.
You have to move the recommendation to exclude the public before I go offline.
I'll move that way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Second.
Who seconded that?
Susan.
Susan, thank you. Oh, thanks, Susan. Didn't see